Welcome to another episode of Voices of Women. And this is a special episode, an individual story that definitely has inspired me, and I would love to have them inspire more and more of us all across age groups, all across spaces, and maybe across different countries also. So, Smita, I think it's better that you get to know Smita through the conversation. From what I know of tidbits from our conversation, she is a professor. She teaches the most easiest subject in the world, which is mathematics. She is into Reiki healing. She has different other adventures that she's been part of, and misadventures also that she's been a part of. So all those things is what we will be catching up today. So you said people give you a call, and then the conversation is, I want to get to know Smita a little bit more. So I will use that as a segue to ask you, saying, okay, I know of these identities of yours, but what else?
Thank you, Sunil, for inviting me on your podcast. That is one thing I want to be grateful for. And people who are listening to me out there, I'd like to tell you one thing that if my story inspires a bit of what I tell, I'd be grateful. I have started off as a healer. Last 6 months, I'm with a healer. I'm learning inner child healing and Ho'oponopono healing and all of that. I started this because, somewhere at one point I felt, I've hit the rock bottom, especially when my father had a stroke. We did have financial losses, and I had to kind of switch, I had to kind of switch my job. And also, I didn't switch though. I decided to switch, but I did not switch. And one of us, my brother or I, had to stay at home, take care of him. There is a complete 360-degree rotation that happened that time. His father is the head of the house. For me, as a daughter, he's my role model. So that is when I felt things fell apart. Whatever I was doing, things were not working out in my way. Towards the end of the month, I did not have money in my account. Okay, that was one thing. I think all of us go through this phase. This healing talk came across to me through Instagram actually. I saw one lady who said life coaching and healing are the things where people are using it to improve, enhance themselves as individuals. At the same time, this could be also monetized if you can heal the other people as well. Okay, with the intention that you can give service to people. That was one intention I had. So if and when I started learning, I did not have money with me. Okay, then she said, "Okay, Smita, free call. One call was free with her, and she understood why I wanted life coaching and all of that. Then after that, I told ma'am, I don't have money to pay you as of now. She said, it's okay. I'll give you a very bare minimum course for 5,000 rupees. And she said, you pay it to me in the installments if you want. If you cannot pay it in one shot, you pay it to me in installments. So I paid it. And after I learned it, I felt, hey, there's something more. Then she introduced to me one more course. It's called Advanced Healing. For that also, I am with her for the last 6 months, and I pay her money in bits and pieces. Actually, and she put me in a community where I met different people with different set of their own challenges or hurdles, or rather plus points or minus points that they are dealing with every day. And this inspired me that okay, if she is doing this to me, a bit of her service to me, I should also start doing this to the people. And I started with four clients who were referred by my auntie, my mom's sister. So that from there it started. I learned Reiki long back actually. 2013, 14, I learned Reiki up to third level. There's a master's level in Reiki which I could not complete. So there I used to give Reiki to people, but over a period of time, if you don't practice, you lose powers. So that happened with me actually. So now I don't say people that I'm a Reiki healer, though I know Reiki symbols and all of that. So when healing started, I think after the four people came and left, I started attracting clients through word of mouth. My students approached me for saying, their set of stories and all of that. Through that, I have clients now who connect with me for the program that I give them. I do it online, and it's really amazing because I am a learner here. At the same time, I'm giving my energy to a person, and that person is becoming a better person. So, this is how the process is working.
How's been your experience when you actually sit in a session and you see change, transformation, challenges in healing journey?
Sunil, what I see in this generation, I'll tell you, Gen Zs who I deal with, they need somebody to talk to. Gone are those days when people had face to face conversation. Today, they want somebody to hear them out, not to give them a solution, but hear them out. And that is where I think the life coaches or the mind coaches, they come into the picture. So when I
Hmm.
hear them out, there is a lot of trauma in them. There's a lot of trauma. They want somebody who listens to them without interrupting them, judging them. The first thing what I do is I give a 45 minutes to 1 hour free call for the client who shows interest, who says I'm ready, with the message that I send on WhatsApp. And after that, when we connect over a call, I try listening to them more than I talking. So I want to know what exactly are they looking for.
Hmm.
And when they say yes, thumbs up, they come for the second session. That means they're actually kind of say they've got the trust in me now. That okay, she
Hmm.
can do some, she can make a difference.
What does
This is
this
how
inner
it
child
goes.
healing?
Inner child healing is something that as you're growing up as a child, you might have had a disturbed childhood or you might have had a traumatic childhood. Maybe, you would have lost one of your parent or you would have had a very bully kind of a childhood. Somebody would have bullied you when you're young. See, if I tell you my example, I'm basically a physically challenged person. Okay. When I walk, I've got a slight disability. It's not completely physically challenged and all of that. I've got slight disability. When I walk, it's visible. I limp. Okay. So when people look at me like that today, I would say, okay, please look at me now. Amazing. Today, I've got that maturity to deal with it. But while I was young, there will be people who say that, okay, take her to this doctor or take her to this Ayurvedic medicine. There will be people suggesting your parents. And they look at you. And the way they look at you, you feel a little conscious that, okay, because I'm different from the others, I've been looked at or I've been, every time people ask me, what is wrong with you? So that kind of what do you say? It affects your childhood actually. When a child growing up, and when you're looked at differently, I think that hits you somewhere. It
Hmm.
does. If as a child, especially you talk to a child who's lost his or her father or mother at a very young age, he or she is looked at very differently from the family members. Forget about the outsider, from the family members itself, relatives or your cousins or your uncle, aunts, paternal, maternal, whoever it is. Okay. Uh, I don't know if I'm making sense, but that is how it is. And when you're financially not very kind of in the lower middle class, you're in a financial lower middle class, you're being compared all the time. Your color, the skin matters sometimes, that you're dark, the other person is fair, he or she gets more importance. All of that happens when you're growing up. We did grow in a society which was in the late 80s or the early 90s. It was not very progressive as it is today. Even today, I don't see that, people are very progressive. There is patriarchy
Yeah,
in terms
true.
of how, even today there's a difference between how a girl is raised and a boy is raised. Yeah, though there are families who are liberal, but yes, certain amount of people are still there who look at the other side, who don't look at the other side of it. Okay. So inner child is something that it doesn't bother you most of the time because it's somewhere stored in your subconscious mind. And what happens is when you're growing up, if you have seen somebody cheating on you from your childhood, let's say somebody says something, you say, hey, you're wearing this, it doesn't look good on you. You start questioning your own worth, actually.
Hmm.
You start questioning yourself. Am I really looking good? And you'll go change the same thing 10 times. Okay, if I open my hair, am I looking good? I'm just giving you an example like a girl. Okay. If I open my hair, am I looking good? Because somebody in my childhood has told the open hair doesn't suit you. So you start questioning your self-worth. You seek validation from the others. You start asking, hey, this suits me. Hey, that there's nothing wrong in asking, I'm telling you. But you should have your own opinion. Give importance to the other person. Make that person feel that okay, he or she is heard. But you should have your opinion at the end of the day, right? Every time you can't keep listening to the others and do take decisions based on that, then what are you as a person? What is Sunil as a person or what is Smita as a person then if we are all listening to the others? Yeah.
So
So
inner
inner
child
child
healing
tries
is
to clear
about
the block,
re-looking at who we are. So,
relooking at yourself, your wounds that you had with your parents or your maybe somebody, your cousin or your closest friend who's nobody hurts you intentionally. Okay. Nobody hurts you
hmm.
intentionally. And see, knowingly or unknowingly, you might feel that there is a trauma through this person or through this incident that's kind of stored in your mind when you're growing up. Okay. Especially see when you're in the army or the defense forces, you see a lot of deaths happening in the family, maybe because of the wars or a lot of other things, right? You stay in different places, you have to adopt different cultures, and you see something unusual when you're very young. Okay. So that way of phrasing kind of makes you stronger also. It makes you stronger because it kind of gives you that willpower to live in any situation that you can. But when you're young, no, you attract those things knowingly or unknowingly because your childhood, your adulthood depends entirely on the way you're being raised as
It's like that thing, like what you learn at 3 years stays for you for the rest of that stuff. So it becomes a space
Exactly,
of
exactly.
unconscious programming, if that's the right word to
It
use it.
does, it
So,
does, and it stays with you. And while you're growing up, sometimes you will not understand the pattern that why am I attracting negative energy or
mm,
negative people or the people who don't match my vibe. That negative person may be positive somebody else. Okay, I'm not saying he or she is negative, but why do you attract somebody who's not matching your vibe?
mm. Yeah, I think as a generation, I also work with young adults, right? So this is, I think, a space that needs a lot of attention, the kind of healing, maybe in terms of their being raised. And say in your 90s, how you were raised, somebody else was raised, and maybe early 2000s to now. A very huge difference in the way parenting has changed, lives have changed. And I think, yeah, like you said, people need somebody to just listen to without judgment. And it can be the beginning of a journey for them in terms of discovering something that they understand that this is why. And then also once they've understood, move forward from wherever they are and however they want to. So that is an interesting space. But I also want to go a little bit of history because what you said. How did you end up becoming a mathematics professor, and what pulled you into math? Because math is the most heaviest, toughest subject according to too many people. I loved math. I never had a problem with math. So I'm on the other side of the spectrum. My friends, I think, still shiver with mathematics.
I took up maths for the very reason that when I was graduating, okay, I found numbers very interesting than theory. I found numbers interesting, though I was not a great scorer in math. So I did my MSc Math from Christ University. That was way back in 2011. That is when I graduated. Now, currently, I am with the B school wherein I teach the MBA students. I also did MBA Business Analytics because it's got its fundamentals in mathematics and statistics actually. Statistics is more interesting than maths. That's what I felt. It deals with numbers. It's to the point. You don't have to beat around the bush. No stories, nothing. It's like to the point. And I like it, in fact. You don't have to write stories, man. Come on. What happened when? Who cares? I want numbers. End of the day, in your account, you get numbers, no? That is how it is.
So can you give us an example of how you make math interesting?
Connected to the real life. There is something called continuous series in a data. You put the number of people who are between the age 10 to 20. So my Gen Z students are very interesting. So how they talk is this is situationship, this is breadcrumb, this is long-term relationship. So this is how my students talk. So people who are in situationship are 8. People who are in breadcrumbing are 25. They are more in number.
Hmm.
See, there's something called benching. I didn't know this. I thought benching means sitting on a bench. So, yeah. So when I talk to my students, no, I got to know that these are the terminologies used for different kind of relationships today,
Oh,
and that
true,
they
true.
connect with math so beautifully. Hypothesis testing. There's something called hypothesis. You assume that there is going to be crisis in the next 2 years, let's say, and your alternate hypothesis is there's not going to be crisis, it can be debt, and you prove it through a research. You conduct a test and you prove it through a research. That's the concept in statistics. So for that also my students take it so beautiful examples. Okay, I'm going to get a job after third semester. Am I going to be placed in this company? That's my hypothesis. And alternatives, if not this company, some other company I'll be placed. This is how you kind of make the subject probably interesting by giving real life examples.
Very interesting because there's a lot of misunderstanding of Gen Z, and I think Gen Z is uh, put in a bracket saying Gen Z is very difficult to work with.
Not at
And
all.
yeah, and you do math also when you
If
in the same
I'll
segment, so
tell
you're
you,
working with two
yeah,
challenges.
yes, see, Gen Zs are not difficult to deal with. They are very clear as to what they want. See, for instance, if you or I are placed in a corporate company, something your boss says, you kind of adjust saying, okay, I'm working here and there. He'll shout at me. I'll deal with this. I'll work. End of the day, I want money in my account. Gen Zs are not like that. If they don't want something, they'll say, boss, I have other options. Tata, I'm going. Straight away at one point, they cut you. They don't deal with the chaos or the mess. They have that clarity. Yeah. If I have to say the other side of them in terms of dealing with their mental health or their the way they deal with relationships, that's a little different from how we deal actually.
Hmm.
Because we were not exposed to the social media those days, right? We didn't have many options. Today there are options, there is media all over, so they extract information from everywhere, which we did not have back then. That is how to deal with Gen Z, you'll have to understand their mindset, and I become a Gen Z sometimes to understand what they actually want. They are difficult because they'll not listen to you. They don't have the patience to, have patience, slow growth, success. No, they want fast growth, fast success. We've always raised with the concern that you have to work longer to reach a certain level, right? Which is not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. But these people have given a different perspective and a definition to it. The Gen Zs have given a different definition.
I think
Yeah.
true. It's been a continuous churn in terms of generations, and Gen Z has a lot of things are right on the plate, which maybe somebody had to work. So I'll tell you an example of booking a cab. Booking a cab had its own adventures when I was going to get it for when elders came home.
Hmm.
You're encouraged to go to the corner, fill 25, 30 autos, and one of them would come. Right now, nothing. You just click a button, say this is the destination. Somebody comes, you know how much to pay. Same thing. You had no jugaad, nothing. We had to do that. But what I learned was negotiation skills from those. So maybe these people learn it from a different ball game.
Perspective, yes.
Also are quite different in terms of their lifestyle, the way they are. And I think what we fail to understand as a space is that their advantages are also there with who they are. And the very same advantages at many places become a disadvantage. So they are also a generation that requires listening as much as you need listening.
Hmm.
So that common platform is what I think is a missing link to that.
Gen Z says, I'm going to start making money at the age of 18 or 20, and I'll retire at 40. But you and I, as a millennial, will not agree this. Like, no, we have to work till the age of 60, till we retire. We should have sufficient number of money when we grow old, we need to have funds with us. We need not depend on somebody for our expenses or finances or whatever it is. Now, these are two perspectives. Now, if a person says, I want to retire at 40, that means he or she kind of plans the entire life till he or she lives. Today, the lifespan is 50. So, you're retiring at 40 means another 10 years you will somehow manage it. That is the way they have, they frame their mindset. That is the way the mindset
They
is
come with a
framed.
very different ball game.
Yes, see, when we were young, we did not question things. You ask something, there's somebody stopping you. Hey, keep quiet. You don't know. When the elders are saying something, there's some theory behind this, or there's some reason behind this. Today, Gen Z questions that. They question things. But why is it this way? Why is it that way?
I think that is how the generation has come to, and I think it's a logical space. Each generation has its own needs, and that get expressed in multiple segments, multiple ways. But I have a question that maybe takes back to your history. You said you have been a person who's had physical disabilities, and yet when I speak to you, I don't see that. That's not something that defines Smita as a person. I don't know how short, how long you wanted to answer this question, because I felt that uh, was very inspiring to have that conversation with you. And I know it's not been easy and it may not have been. But how did you settle in? Because you said you're a healer. How was your healing journey? So it's a long question, but I leave it to you in terms of this. There's no time bandwidth for this one. You can go ahead, go all guns blazing on what you want to talk about.
Plain, simple words, I'll tell you. It's still not easy. Even today, there is questions that I get from people. There are things that I have to validate because I'm a single woman and physically challenged. Okay? These are two things. While I was raising, there were fingers at me. There were people asking questions. I wouldn't say wrong or right, but this is how it was. But yeah, having said that, there were two amazing people in my life, and those are parents who come from my father comes from a military background, because of which he had a very liberal way of looking at things. He's seen all the cultures, all the people he's met. So he said, okay, let her be raised as much with the freedom as we can give her. Because if you restrict, see, when you put a bird in a prison, he or she tries to break the prison and fly, right? Instead, you leave the bird free. It'll fly and it'll come back. That is how it was. So whatever I did, okay, I used to take their permission and suggestion, of course, and there was not a no. I think there hardly been no's I've heard from both my parents. So whenever they said no, I said okay, I respect the fact. There is freedom given. The rope is made loose, okay, but it's still in their hands. And because of which, even today, I take a decision, I talk to them and take a decision. That's the freedom I have. Freedom of speech. I could speak my mind. There was no restrictions for that. Raised in this liberal environment, maybe I became like this too, wherein I could face the people. There's one tendency: physically challenged people get government job very easily. There is some quota reserved. I didn't want to stay in that quota. I'd rather do something on my own. It's not that it's not wrong, okay, but I didn't want to get into that. It's my choice. Becoming a healer was my choice. Becoming an assistant professor was my choice. Pursuing PhD now parallelly is my choice. Dealing with Gen Zs is my choice. Yeah. Going out and meeting people is my choice. So, and yes, staying single is my choice. It's not that I had to stay single all my life, but yes. Having said that, just because you have some ailment, you have to settle for less. No, I don't agree for that. For any woman for that matter, I would want to tell that you call your shots in life. You don't have to settle for less. Somebody, I don't know, it's about companionship and partnership. If you get somebody like-minded who understands what you want, you understand what he or she wants, I think that is where companionship works. Yeah. So at one point you need to depend on yourself. Let's be very clear on that. Nobody is going to be there with you all your life. Having said that, I'm not against marriage. I'm not saying that. You need a company in marriage: companionship, partnership, mutual understanding, respect, where the responsibility is shared. And it shouldn't be societal obligation. This is the point that came across to me when I was growing up. Even today, there are questions that why are you single? Did you find a man? You can find somebody. Of course, I can find somebody. But will I find somebody who knows Smita, who will understand what Smita wants, or who will understand what he or she wants? For example, I'll take your example. Will I understand what Sunil wants? Yeah, that's being a partner. And if you get that, good. If you don't, you need to know, figure out how to live life.
Yeah.
And go with the flow, yeah. Go with the flow. It's about it. And just because you're born with an ailment, see, it's not your fault you're born with an ailment. At the same time, it's not your parents' fault who have brought you to the world. Nobody plans that way, right? So you need to know how to figure it out.
I think that is something very, very inspiring to hear. And you've had your journey, right? So it's not been that there've been not places where question marks have been raised, even by yourself. Right? You've had that space, but you've gone through that space. Now you have that space, and very true that you will have to figure out what works for you, what kind of a space you want to. Not settle for less, not settle for what's easy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just because somebody says that you have to do this, somebody says this is good for you, people will tell you. I'm not saying they are wrong. They may be telling it for your good, but you figure out what you want. What is your calling? That's important.
So good question. So what's your calling?
My calling is, as of now, the healing is going on, and I learn a lot of things from people. I learn a lot of things from myself, becoming a better version of who I am. And let's see how it takes. Let's see how it takes. It'll benefit me in terms of my monetary gains. It'll benefit me as a person, a transformed person who can try to inspire people. That is one thing. And of course, if I inspire people, they inspire the others. The chain reaction should go on. That is what I believe in. Yeah. So there's one line which I heard somebody quoting in the speech, okay, that the service to others is the rent that you pay for the room that you have on the planet Earth.
Wow. Okay.
So this was told by Dwayne Johnson in one of his award shows, and he's one person I really admire. I really admire his journey. So
Yes.
he's somebody who I really admire. And there are a lot of people who have been through challenges in our own country and who have done wonders. And I can take example of Sudha Chandran, who was a classical dancer, Paralympic classical dancer. There are so many sports people, who would have Paralympic sports, rather they've got gold medals. Many people like that. I can take examples and tell you. They're film actors, and I've heard that there are a couple of actors in Kannada movie. I belong to Bangalore, Karnataka, so I'm very, very possessive about that. So I've heard a couple of actors in Kannada who couldn't hear things. They used to listen to the other person talking and then deliver their dialogues. That's
Wow.
an artist. That's an artist. So there are people who've done wonders like that.
Absolutely. And it's really a space where you define your identity. Like you define what
Absolutely.
you work with, you define what works for you. You start working if something is not for you, and you know that there is some level of control with you can work with that. Wow.
Yes, don't give
Hmm.
ears to what people tell you. If it's negative, you feel it's not for you, don't give ears to it.
How did you
So
handle that?
that's what there are people. See, advisors everybody will give you, Sunil, because it's free of cost. Okay, even I give advice to people, but I charge. That's a different thing. As I
Uh,
so I see. I don't say they're wrong. You need people. End of the day, good or bad, you need people around you, right? We're all social beings. So how much do you listen and imbibe that in you? That depends on your personality. Even today, where I work or the people I meet, they have their own opinions to share. They have their own opinions to share. Most of my colleagues say you should marry, you should know, you should experience marriage. I said, what is experiencing marriage? You please tell me. Every day you cook a meal, you talk, every day you cook a meal, you talk ill about your mother-in-law, you talk about your husband, you talk about your children. Is that the experience of marriage? You tell me this. Or is it the companionship that you enjoy? So,
Hmm.
10 people will tell you 10 different things. So it depends on what you want to listen and what you want to leave.
And I think there, very
So
importantly, you should have an opinion, right? So you should have something that defines you,
exactly. A lot
and
of people
that
say
really.
that you can try dating. You can try dating
Hmm.
apps. These days, dating apps are available. You should try dating apps, meet people there, and try to know them, kind of go out, put yourself out. You'll meet the right people. Who knows? You'll meet the right people. You'll meet up even more worst people. You don't know that. So, so I think,
This is your
see, if
typical
you
mathematical probability. You put hand inside a, what is that? This thing, red ball will come. What is the probability of this? The next one will be the same thing, no? Something like
see,
that.
probability 30% means the other 1 minus 30, 70%. So, yeah, if you
So,
want to try out, explore options. There are many options today. But is that your calling? You're doing
hmm.
it because somebody is suggesting you, or you're doing it because you want to do it. That is the difference. So, I think, yes,
I was just asking, so what have been two incidents or three incidents in your life that you always remember?
I'll tell you. First thing, I think when I bought my first car,
Mm.
2016. Okay. I always want to have a car for our family because we used to go by, there's no comparison that, he or she has a car or I don't have it. I want to have a car because I want to learn driving. Okay.
Mm.
So got an auto gear car in 2026 for a loan. It was a 5 lakh or new model Wagoner. Okay. So that
Mm-hmm.
time the price of the car was 5.6 or something. It was a new model and we bought it. So that was the first thing I felt really nice. I learned driving also. Then later I quit. For some reason I quit. I don't drive looking at sometimes the way the traffic is in Bangalore, I said, no, it's better I go in the cab. I depend on somebody rather than I drive. Not the wrong perspective again, but yeah, I kind of don't drive now. I learned driving, and that is one thing which made me feel even more independent. And the second incident I'll tell you, after this 2022, we got our first house.
Superb.
We got our first house, and that is where especially my parents pushed me, said that you buy this property and we'll all stay here together, and and somewhere I could see that happiness on their face for my family, and that is one thing that I made an asset for myself. So wherein I can stay secure. I feel that everybody should do something, invest in something that can be an asset for you, not just a house, anything for that matter, whatever is in your budget or whatever you can afford. That should be one thing. I think these are the two major things. That is what I
Mm.
felt. uh,
What is one story that has left you inspired?
I would say that I've read the profile of few people who probably the world is underestimated them, that they couldn't do it, but they have worked in such a way that it you know, kind of those people who underestimated look at themselves saying, why did we do that? So I have
Mm.
read a couple of things about these kind of people. So there are many people like that. Okay. Uh,
Mm.
I was reading about Rishabh Shetty somewhere. He came to Bangalore with some 100 rupees or 150 rupees. He used to give water cans to people. And today, the way he is grown, as a producer, as a director. His journey has been an inspiration to so many people who have dreams, I feel, and he did not give up on that. I look at Sudhamurthy, one person such. She is somebody who challenged the stereotype back in those days.
Back in those
And
days.
those days, women were not allowed to much study and all of that and educate themselves. But she is somebody who turned the definition of what is an independent woman. And I watched a movie called 12th Fail. So this movie is
Mm.
based on an IPS officer who kind of was in a very poor background, worked really, really hard because of the girlfriend he had, he actually achieved. So a partner could be an asset to you also. Even that I have seen. So many examples. There's one movie where this girl did not have a hand and she became a volleyball player or something.
Mm.
Many, many examples like that I can quote. Oh, so many
Mm.
examples. There's this lady called Deepa Manik. I think she's a Paralympic shot put player. Okay, so you might have heard about her. She lost her I think the census below her waist actually at the age of 20. She was married and all that. She's on wheelchair. Okay, so she's somebody who goes for this Paralympics. Every
Mm.
year she participates. She gets the long throw, no, shot put, or what do you call that? I don't remember the proper sports that she does. She does shooting, all of that, sitting on that wheelchair itself. So she is one person I really get inspired by. There are people who are in the trans communities. I've seen a transgender activist who's a PhD holder, and she's kind of fighting for the identity for her. So these are the people who
Mm.
really inspire. And we look very down on the people who are trans, right? I still see them begging on the roads, and I feel very sorry for them, actually. But there are people on the other side who have done, who are doing wonders. Even yeah. And I'm glad that, they are also a part now. There's a third gender included for them. I feel very, very happy for that, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was required.
A very long due
Many, many more
requirement.
examples. Yeah.
Mm.
They fought for it. They fought for it, actually. The activists have actually fought for it.
So one final question for this podcast at least. Why should women share their stories to others, even though they may not be celebrities?
Everybody has some or the other side of theirs that can inspire an individual. So I think if they are brave enough or they want their story to be heard, they should share it. That's what I feel. I don't say I'm a perfect woman. I have flaws. Maybe the other woman also, her flaws will be there. Okay. But if she is able to openly tell it out to the woman, I think, and if that could make a difference, then that will be amazing. Let's change that definition. No, the biggest enemy of a woman is another woman. Let's just change that definition for some time at least.
Yes, I think all spectras exist, Smita. I think that is a
All
true
spectras
space.
exist. Yes, yes. There are women who encourage the other women also. There are women who are putting down the other women also. So there are two ways of looking at it. And you are a man who's connecting all the women to become inspiration to each other. So I think you should be given a credit for that. So thank you. Thank you for that. You're doing a great job.
Most welcome. And I think I have seen people who have really been inspiring to people around them. So they have that vibe, but they do not tell their stories to others, which if they share can actually inspire way more number of people to share. That's also
Amazing.
a trigger point to do this, saying, if there are enough people that start, so it like you said somewhere, it becomes an avalanche effect. So one to the two, two to four, four to eight. And that's the whole idea of the series that we've been doing for quite some time. This is year 3 of the space. We've had some fascinating stories. So that is how this has come to be. And any last thoughts before we close?
If you ask me, what do you want to do in the next 5 or 10 years? Smita, where do you see yourself? I would say that, I get inspired by these women whose picture is on the Forbes magazine. So I would want to see my picture there sometime on the Forbes magazine. The top
Awesome. I
50
think
women
that's
in Bangalore. Bangalore, of course, I love my city. And, someone says top 50 Kannadiga who's made a difference or top 50 Indian who's made a difference. I would say Indian rather, Kannadiga. Because it's later part. We'll break down that also. So I would be there on the Forbes magazine with that, confident look on my face and on the cover page. I would see myself there.
awesome. We
Maybe
wish
10
you
years,
the
15 years,
best.
I don't know.
Yeah. wish you the very best. It is definitely possible with the right kind of stuff that is coming by, and I think you are well on your way to make it to Forbes. You know, we'll 15 years later we'll revisit this podcast and be like, look, I had said this out loud here and it's happened. So I will also get a lot more famous saying, look, Smitha's first podcast happened on Sunil's channel.
I would love to quote that this is the man who actually kind of fueled my thoughts even more than what it was.
Fantastic. And I'm very, very happy that, these are your dreams. And if at some point I can add some fuel to that and help you through in any of these, the space is always welcome.